Welcome back to the Casting Cost cEDH podcast. I'm Chase, and today I'm covering the Road to Munich 314 player cEDH event that happened this past weekend. Now, I am going to be completely honest with you guys. I had already recorded this and I was going through and editing, and it was doing what this has been doing as far as just cutting in and out. And I really was like, I don't really want to re-record it, but for the sake of being transparent, I'm going to try my best to re-record it, get it out on the same day, so on for you guys. So I'm going to take some advice from our good friend Yaw from That's a Good Card. And if you aren't following Yaw on That's a Good Card and Kyle, like, just go like and subscribe them now. But I'm going to take words of advice from him. And so you just got to eat that shit. And so I'm going to try my best to keep this as close as I can to me, because I was kind of all over the place the other day, and that's happened a few times on the podcast, and I'm just kind of tired of it. Yeah, we are going to be covering this 314 player event that happened in the UK as part of the UK cEDH Championship this past Saturday and Sunday. That just was a massive event. Like Blake and we I guess it kind of flew under the radar for us. We weren't really sure what all was going on. We did an episode this week on just things that we are thankful for now that, at least here in the US, tomorrow is Thanksgiving. And so, yeah, we kind of didn't think about this. And I know there were some other events that were going on. I know there was one in Colorado and so on, but this was the biggest event that happened over the course of the weekend. Now, before we dive into this, let's talk about our affiliate. So we've been talking about this for, I guess, a couple of weeks now. We are affiliated with Mana Vault Proxies. So if you're not familiar with Mana Vault Proxies, it is owned by a player in the space, Notorious, that just really cares about putting out high quality proxies. It even says here, high quality MTG proxies. And so all you have to do is you have a bunch of different options. You can order singles, you can order a full commander deck. All you have to do is post a Moxfield or Architect list. You could buy bundles. If you have 3 decks that you want, you could get quality proxies of the 3 decks that you want. And also, if you're a content creator, you can get business cards made with it. One of the neatest features that I think on Notorious's website is that he also has the Hall of Champions. So if you take a look here, we have the top 4 from the big ZD2. If you want Ian's list, if you want Dio's, Meatballs, Andrew's list, you can buy all 4 of them as a bundle, or if you just want one of them, you can just buy one of them if you would like to. Also, I think Notorious is getting into metal posters, and so that's kind of cool to see here that we have a Gyruda poster here that he's trying to do. So if that's something that you're interested in and want something decorative for your room or office space or whatever it is, go check out Mana Vault Proxies. Use code CCC or click our affiliate link down below to earn 5% off, and everything that we get just goes back into the channel and helps improve the quality of things. So, like I said, I'm re-recording this stuff for you guys, and I'm going to try my best to. I'm hoping that eating the microphone is going to help a little bit more this time around. So here we go. Let's get into this top 16. As you all know, I'm not very good at pronouncing names, but I'm going to try my best. So in 16th place, we have Lynn Prohl on Thrasios Vial Smasher. So Sans White list, I actually really enjoy this list. It's something that I've wanted to put together for a while. I've had multiple brews on, but it's kind of felt odd and a little bit clunky at times. But let's kind of take a look and see what Lynn has going on. So it looks like, for the most part, creature-wise, we're on some dorks, basic things that we would see even in like blue form lists, as far as like Mockingbird, Ragavan, Simian Spirit Guide, Thassa's, Bergie, Valley Floodcaller. So I mean, still taking some of the tech from that, but incorporating the green to be able to ramp out a little bit more. And so I guess we're prioritizing speed in this list as opposed to additional protection with things like Grand Abolisher, Major Captain, and so on. I feel like that this is just trying to go a little bit faster, and it potentially can. It's just Yeah, it's always been an odd deck, but it is cool to see in this event. Let's keep going. Let's see what else we got. In the sorceries, again, blue farm esque things. I think the diabolic intent is actually really, really important here, just because you can late game get more use out of your dorks and creatures that you have on the field by sacrificing them and getting pieces you actually need. Calling Ritual, fantastic card. In Golgari colors instances, I see that offer. I see the Rain of Filth. Let's see, are they on Snapback? Yep, they're on Snapback. So they are on like kind of that ritualistic tech in that. So that's kind of cool to see here. Um, Okay, they're on Adnaz, but they're also on Misdirection and Commandeer. And I guess that kind of makes sense. If we look at their instances, they're like really interactive as much as they can. And I think that's kind of to compensate for the fact that we don't have silence effects. So being able to potentially steal like someone's ranger captain with the Commandeer, or um, helping that with the additional protection in the counter wars and things like that, it just seems pretty good. So I like that there. Looking at the artifacts, what we are kind of used to seeing with um, Blue Farm, but also a mix of like Rogside a little bit, where we have that Springleaf Drum, where if that comes down and we have a Dork as well, so like land, Springleaf Drum, Mana Dork, and let's say a Elfish Spirit Guide, which I think was up there at the top. Being able to tap it down right away in order to get, just kind of propel yourself forward even more. So, yeah, that seems good there. Enchantment wise, I think the common theme between most of these lists, and we'll see this today, is that they're pretty much all on Fish, Underworld Breach, Necropotence, and Mystic Study. Anything that's like similar to Blue Farm will be on that package in particular. But also being able to utilize Carpet of Flowers here for additional mana, either for Thrasios activations or just speed up the game plan even more. And Training Grounds, again, being able to lower things for the Thrasios itself. And then we are on 28 lands. Nothing too out of the ordinary here. I do like the inclusion of the Tarnished Citadel. Again, I said earlier that I feel like this deck in particular is a little clunky at times. So being able to fix the mana base as much as we can is really important. Because like hitting the green early on is important because of our dorks and trying to ramp things out. But the later the game goes, the green becomes less and less important. And so being able to actually have more lands in your land package that can hit all colors is nice. Even though we're on ad nauseam, if we're trying to go fast and we're just trying to jam with this deck, your life total is a resource. It doesn't really matter. So, I do think this is a cool list. I'd like to see more of it, and that's just kind of where I stand on that. So, congratulations to Lynn on 16th place with a record of 2, 1, and 4. In 15th place, we have William Schaublum. Yeah, like I said, you all know me. I'm not gonna pronounce it right for shit. But we have Roxai here. So what I think is interesting stands out right away. They are on Spider Punk. And I know that's a card that a lot of people speculated in the beginning, like to be like really good, or they thought it would be like, oh, this is Red's equivalent to Grand Abolisher. But I think people are kind of finding out that, now, I'm not gonna say it's not as good as what it seems, but where you could potentially turn on what your opponents are trying to do. Like if you're trying to present a win and then now all your opponent's stuff is also uncounterable, so they just went on top of you. That just kind of feels bad, and there's nothing you can really do about it unless you're able to remove your own Spider Punk at that point. So looking at this though, pretty consistent with what we've seen out of Roxai as far as the creature package. Looking at our sorceries, this is probably a little bit more wheel heavy than we've seen here recently. But I mean, that's not bad. You're trying to go fast. You're trying to see as many cards as you want to, and if you're trying to turbo that out and do the wrong side plan, then that's what you go for. A few different extra turn effects, so I'm assuming they're also on the Final Fortune. So like 3 extra turns. Looking at the instances, okay. This looks pretty typical so far with Rogsai. Yeah. Like mostly like heavy interaction package, but I mean, we are a turbo deck with this, so it's going to play more greedy than anything else. Um, So, I mean, that's all good to see here. Obviously, Adnons is a big piece in the deck. Looking at our artifacts now, they are on the grinding station, which, if you're on Rog side, just makes sense to be doing that. Nothing too out of the ordinary for this. I would say the only thing in the artifacts that I'm noticing is that they are on Vexing Bubble and Defense Grid. I feel like here recently we've seen like just Defense Grid, or not, sorry, just Vexing Bubble. But I mean, I could be wrong on that. I don't think doubling down on it, especially whenever you don't have access to white, is a bad thing. It's just kind of one of those things. If you get stopped somehow, or you mess up your line and you have a defense grid out, you can kind of start turning on what your opponents are trying to do. So again, it's one of those pieces that you have to be very careful of the timing of, and you can't just slam it down. Again, like I said a little bit ago, the four common enchantments that we're going to see between a lot of decks like this, with the fish, breach, the necropotence, and the heuristic study. I think it's kind of cool that they are on copy enchantment. I mean, you see that in the wrong side list at times, but you don't really see it as like the full on rock side. But I guess if they're not on Wishclaw Talisman, which is something that Rog side pilots have kind of picked up here recently, or like within the past few months to push more into the mid to late game, I guess copy enchantment and being able to copy a heuristic study or another necropotence or things like that is something to kind of do the same thing. Necro dominance, I think, is something that kind of comes out in and out of times from the Rog side list. I know whenever it was first released, people really hyped on it, and then now it kind of fell out of favor. But I'm also like an advocate for creating redundancy at times. So I don't think that's a bad call. It is interesting though. Looking at the lands now, I feel like it is a slightly higher count than what we are used to seeing with Rockside. Like I would say we're used to seeing like what, 23, 24 at times. So 25 is interesting. The only card that kind of stands out to me that seems different is the Peat Bog itself. So this land enters tap with 2 depletion counters. Remove a depletion counter from this land. Add black. If there are no depletion counters on this land, sacrifice it. So I mean, it's not a bad card. Being able to remove a counter and make double black, so you have an additional Phyrexian Tower type effect, and then you sacrifice it whenever it doesn't have the counter on it, so that way you fuel your breach lines. So I mean, that's not bad at all. Just something we're not really used to seeing, I think, too much. Or if it has been popping up, then I've just not been paying enough attention to it. But yeah, other than that, it's a Rog side list. It's going fast and some interesting includes, but overall, the deck is pretty consistent with what we have been seeing. So congratulations, William, on a 15th place finish with a record of 2, 1, and 4. In 14th place, we have Ahmad on Blue Farm. We're used to seeing Blue Farm quite a bit. Like, even though people are going turbo in the US meta, so far it looks like we're going a little bit more mid-range with this one, even though we just covered a Rog side list. Let's take a look at this Blue Farm list, because the thing that stands out right away to me is they are on Rogue Rack. Which is kind of interesting. It's neat, but it kind of informs me of a few things. Either they are trying to go faster by enabling things like Culling Ritual or Culling the Weak and Mox Amber and things like that. But they're also higher on the red creature count, so I'm assuming they are also on Flare of Duplication. Let's kind of keep looking, because everything else is pretty standard, I feel like, for Blue Farm. No Orcish Bowmaster, but again, that's kind of a trend we've been noticing these past several weeks, is people are kind of coming off of that card in Blue Farm. So let's take a look, see what else is going on here. It does look like they are on Mnemonic Betrayal, which, again, we've kind of pointed this out before. It's a card that I feel like people kind of come on and off of in Blue Farm list. And then same thing with the Jessica's Will and the Wheel of Fortune, not necessarily getting off of those cards, but we've noticed a lot of lists tend to run one or the other. They are running both. And I don't think Mnemonic Betrayal is a bad thing either. I still think it's a really strong card and has a lot of potential. I just think that people have been prioritizing speed for the most part. So looking at the instances, I see Orm's Chant here. I see the Rain of Filth down there in the corner. We're on an offer. I wonder if they're on Snapback. No Snapback. So just utilizing an offer as a traditional counter spell, or just being able to counter something different. They are on Redirect Lightning, which is kind of cool. And I think a card that, if you're able to run red most lists are going to start including it in here. Let's see. One there is the flare duplication, so called that shit. Artifacts. Taking a little bit of ROG side tech with the vexing bubble here, which we're not used to seeing too much of the thing pieces like that in blue farm, but I don't think that's a bad call either. Looking at, again, same similar enchantments between with those five, or really those four, but blue farm's going to be running Smothering Tithe as well, so expect to see those whenever you're seeing a blue farm list. Looking at the land package now, they are also on Tarnished Citadel and Spire of Industry. That just kind of tells me they are wanting to ensure that they are hitting their colors very early on and utilizing the life total as more of a resource than anything else. Even though they're on Adnaz, seems good. I think the only thing that kind of stands out to me in the lands that I'm not seeing is we've seen City of Traders pop up quite a bit in blue form lists, and they choose not to run it. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, especially if you're trying to more so color fix with some of our lands. And other than that, the list is solid. It's still blue form, and it's going to do blue form things. So congratulations, Ahmad, with a record of 3-4-0. In 13th place, we have Michael. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce his name. On another blue farm list. So very similar to the one we just covered. Kind of still a little bit high, no rogue rack, but still high on the red creature count, which still kind of informs me that we're on flare duplication. They are on Wan Shi Tong though, and that's cool to see. Again, that's like one of the most anticipated cards from the set, or people are like, if you're playing blue, you might as well play this. And, I made the comment in our video a couple weeks ago, like the things that Wan Shi Tong hits, like for consistency's sake, like it is an Archivist effect. Most people, to make their deck consistent, are utilizing tutors to their advantage or the best that they can. And so Wan Shi Tong kind of hitting the format in that angle, just I could see how it can very quickly create this like very disproportionate effect. So I guess blue form needed that for some reason, but here it is, and I think it's going to kind of continue to be a staple in the list. But outside of that, it's pretty traditional blue form creature package that we are seeing. They are opting to do Bergie and Professional Facebreaker, and I think that's pretty good here. Looking at the sorceries, kind of the only difference is that we have an extra turn effect in the sorceries. We're still on a wheel and the Jessica's Will and the Mnemonic Betrayal, but they also opted to include Windfall here. So we've seen a lot of lists like not for Blue Farm not running multiple wheel effects, but they're doing that here, and I think that's totally fine. Looking at instances, I want to say they're slightly higher on their instant count than the last one was. They're on offer. No Orange Chant this time around. They are on the snapback. I don't see. So they're on the snapback tech. They have redirecting lightning. No Orange Chant. No Rain of Filth. Okay. There's the flare duplication. Looking at the artifacts, it seems like the only difference is like no Vexing Bauble in the artifacts here. Same enchantments. Higher land count. So let's see what kind of lands they are running that's different. They're on the Mistrise Village. They're on Starting Town as opposed to the, what is it? The Tarnished Citadel in this, which, I mean, that's probably okay. And then, I don't remember if the last one was on Survey Land or not. I didn't really call that out, but the land package is almost similar. Again, no City of Traders either, but they are on Mistrise Village and Starting Town is like the things that seem different to me, which are not bad picks by any means. I think just having an additional way to make something encounterable is fine in addition to the Cavernous Souls. So, yeah, good list. I mean, Blue Farm is Blue Farm, and it does Blue Farm things. So, congratulations on 13th place with a record of 3-4-0. All right. In 12th place, we have Sitsi Ruse. I butchered that name, but it is what it is. They are on Oswald Fiddlebender. So they are in mono white colors, but super heavy artifact strategies because you basically have a repurposing bay or a birthing pod in the command zone that's pretty cheap and can get going pretty quickly. And so we are in like I said, a lot of artifact type strategy. So let's take a look and see what we got going on. Looks like in our creature package, we have Marvin here, which is really nice because if you slam him down like turn 1 and then turn 2, you Oswald, you could potentially copy the Oswald ability with Marvin and be able to sacrifice Marvin and go get a 3-drop right away. Maybe even get something like the Metal Worker that's there if you had to. So, I mean, that's kind of cool to see in this. Uh, Pretty much all our creatures are artifacts. The only one that isn't is the Witch Enchanter, but I'm assuming that we are utilizing more of that as a land than an actual creature. Um, Aethersworn Canoness is kind of a stacks piece, and it really turns into an asymmetrical piece because this deck is running so many artifacts, and the Canoness doesn't limit the artifacts; it limits your other spells. So that's kind of cool. Seeing the Pillapala, the Metalworker, and the Mirror Welder there, that kind of informs me that these are like our creature like combo pieces that we have within it. So that's neat. We could generate infinite mana through Pillapala if we have some shenanigans with that and like filter our mana with it. We have Metalworker that again we can generate infinite colorless mana. Mirror Welder copies all the activated abilities of artifacts that you basically exile with it. So we're doing some things there too. Let's see. I'm sure I'm missing something within that, but let's keep going. Looking at the sorceries, I'm not even going to really highlight that because I think it's just for the land purposes. We have Enlightened Tutor, get whatever artifact we want. Galadriel's Dismissal. I like this card because you can either save your own board or you can just like shut down someone else's board if they're on like full like creature combo type stuff. So that's really cool. And then where you have this Razorgrass Ambush, again, it's an MDFC, so I think they're just utilizing it as a land. So this is the important part. They are on 54 artifacts. Crazy. I see the Chalice of the Void. I see the Grafdigger's Cage, Pithing Needle. So like a few different stacks pieces that we have scattered throughout this, like the Dampening Sphere, the wind. Okay, so a lot of different stacks pieces that we're seeing throughout this, and a few different ways of generating infinite mana, like the Rings of Brightheart Basalt Monolith or the Grim Monolith, being able to filter that into the Staff of Domination, draw out our deck, things like Thousand Year Elixir to basically have pseudo haste for Oswald and our other artifact creatures that tap for things. Clock of Omens can be utilized as a combo piece within this deck. Probably Agatha's Soul Cauldron as well, especially seeing Agatha as like being able to, if you have like infinite mana and you have this out, being able to like eat the Pillow Apollo potentially, and then putting the counter on Oswald, and so that way you could tap Oswald down and then untap him to generate the white because of the Pillow Apollo untap ability, and then use that white pip to continue like tutoring things out, whatever you need. So that's cool to see within this, and they're on Codex Shredder, so I'm kind of assuming that that's like a finishing line with the deck where like if you get to the point where you can literally just untap all your stuff and just like keep going and doing these loops that you can mill out the table that way. So that is kind of cool to see in this. And then enchantment wise, again, few not hard stacks pieces, but like some soft stacks to kind of remove the pieces that you need to keep your plan going. And then artifact wise, pretty basic for the most part with what we would expect out of a mono white deck in an artifact heavy deck. So Treasure Vault potentially being used as like once you have infinite mana, dump mana into that to make infinite white, and so on. So it's definitely a cool list. I think someone we've seen pop up a couple times within the past few weeks, but it's just interesting that these artifact strategies are popping up in the format right now. So congratulations with a 12th place finish with a record of 3-4-0. In 11th place, we have Ignacy Ibanez Marti on Tatiova. And I believe we've covered Ignacy's list before. I don't remember if it was with this specific commander, but I feel like the last time that Blake and I did a European Championship event, they had made Top Cut. So it's cool to see here again. Let's see what they are trying to go with in this. Now, with the commander in the command zone, it is kind of more of a land-based strategies where you can gain life and basically draw out your deck. And we're seeing that here. If we look in our creature package, we have the Boreal Breeze Caller there, and we have a lot of ways of either putting additional lands into play. When we start bouncing lands, things trigger and happen. We have Ashaya here, so potentially being able to make use of the Boral Breeze Collar once our creatures are lands and just like infinitely cast them for whatever kind of ETB type effect we need. Um, being able to there's a lot of different things that are going on here. Wan Shi Tong again, and this is the Cabbage Merchant. We've made that a point of Top Deck still hasn't kind of fixed that for the Cabbage Merchant, so please do that, please, so we can see that. But Wan Shi Tong, I'm assuming that once this is a land and you have enough mana, you can literally just bounce this and draw out your deck and do whatever you need to. So that's kind of cool. We are on Collector Oof, but if we're a land-based strategy anyway, and we have a decently high creature count, I'm assuming that we're not on very many artifacts. The Quarian Ranger and Sylvan Safekeeper are probably some form of a combo, pieces. They are at times. So that's cool to see here too. Looking at our sorceries, we have the good green creature tutors, but the thing that stands out to me is like how many extra turn effects that we are on. So I mean that's kind of neat. I guess we're trying to take a bunch of turns and we can eventually like kill people through combat damage, which is neat. I mean we had the finale where if we just are able to loop everything and put everything on the battlefield, we can finale for 1 billion and swing out too. So, I mean, that's neat. Looking at the instances, fairly interactive for a deck like this. Decent counter package, being able to recur things, a little bit of protection, running another extra turn effect, running a commandeer here, Psych Rift. So we have some single target removal. We have some things that can work on the stack. We have a little bit of recursion or just instant speed tutors on things. Like that's pretty neat. Ghostly Flicker, I think, is kind of a interesting piece, and we've seen that before as a combo piece, but I feel like that's more of like with our Chaomancer type lines, and that wasn't up there at the top. So maybe just being able to get additional triggers or somehow looping the Ghostly Flicker to draw out the deck too, that's kind of neat. Like I said, artifact count is going to be low. We're on that collector oof, so it really does turn into like more of an asymmetrical effect. But the exploration brood chip is really important if we're trying to get additional lands into play and so on. Looking at our enchantments, it looks like all the things we want as far as some card draw and additional lands and additional mana sources like the Carpet of Flowers. So that's cool. And then we're on 31 lands, which makes sense if we're trying to go into like this somewhat heavier land strategy. It just kind of makes sense to be there. The main ones, obviously, looking out for the Gaia's Cradle, the Talon Gates, and they are not a Manamo or a Deserted Tempo, so it's not like a full-on Turbo Cradle strategy, but at least they have the main pieces for it. And then they're on Strip Mine, so I'm assuming if they have a way of just being able to like loop the Strip Mine, that's kind of cool, and just blow up everyone else's lands, or they are preparing for like the Turbo Cradle strategies and they are just trying to get rid of the other player's cradle. So that's cool. Yeah, definitely a neat list. So this is neat to see because it's one that I've seen before at like just other events, but nothing we've seen pop up too much in like a big event like this. So congratulations on an 11th place finish with a record of 3-2-2. All right, in 10th place we have Elias Scozio, and they are on Rogthras. So, yeah, deck we've seen most of the year. We kind of know what this is doing. It is what, or at least was kind of the boogeyman of the format at the beginning of the year, where we're just drawing a bunch of cards and generating a bunch of mana. And I don't feel like the strategy is changed too much. We saw a lot of variations of it in the beginning of the year, but as things kind of settled down, we've seen it kind of narrowed down to a very consistent 98 cards. The only thing that kind of stands out to me is that they are on some new tech. So it does look like they are on the Badger Mole Cub, the Wan Shi Tong, and the Cabbage Merchant, and I think that's all great. You have a way of producing additional mana, whether that be through your creatures that you could tap down or the lands that you earthbend. You have a way of basically having Wan Shi Tong as something that you can potentially, like, I guess, dump a bunch of mana into and then see a bunch of cards. Same thing like with Fairy Mastermind there. Cabbage Man just being very I don't know if a symbiotic, parasitic. I don't know what the best word to describe how the cabbage merchant is, but just being able to take advantage of your opponent's casting spells and making cabbages seems really good. Again, with what we're seeing in this deck, obviously we're on Royal Breeze colored lines. Fairy Mastermind as kind of a win con there, which we typically see endurance at times, but they don't have endurance here. I'm assuming they're on Green Suns to be able to do that instant speed loop. So that's kind of that's probably just a personal preference there. There's loops that you could do with the Eternal Witness and the Spellseeker and the Displacer Kitten, so that's also kind of neat. Looking at the sorceries, the only thing I'm not gonna say that seems off, but people come like in and out of at times is the Chatterstorm, which I still think is a really great card when you're trying to put bodies on the field. You can utilize this deck as a finale deck where you have X amount of creatures and just be able to swing out. So that's cool to see here. Looking at our instances, and I feel like this is one of the changes that happened kind of earlier in the year. Like this used to not be a super interactive deck, and now it has become an interactive deck because it's one of those like true mid-range decks, I feel like. So being able to interact on the stack, have a little bit of protection there, not just in your counter packages, but things like Veil of Summer, being able to go off at instant speed because that's what this deck needs to be doing sometimes. Yeah, seems good. Looking at our artifacts, they are on the One Ring, which I don't feel like, again, this is kind of something we've noticed throughout the year in that One Ring has kind of fallen out of favor at times. So I think that, that's not necessarily a bad call to still have it, especially if you're able to untap it or like have the Seaborn Muse out and being able to untap it every turn and you see a bunch of cards. Like that's what you're trying to do with the deck. You're seeing a bunch of cards, making a bunch of mana. So it just kind of makes sense. Looking at the enchantments, pretty standard package for Rogthras with the card draw effects, things that produce Thrasios, ways of producing additional mana. Underworld Breach, Song of Creation is kind of the only card that stands out to me in the enchantment package because it's one that's kind of come in and out of times in these lists, but I think it's really good being able to drop an additional land, seeing more cards as you're casting spells, even though, yeah, you have to dump your hand at the end step. I don't think that truly matters whenever you're making that much mana, and you can just basically refill your hand and probably see like 10 more cards by the time it gets back to you anyway, through Thrasios activations and Rhystic Studies and so on. So it's really good. Invasion, a piece we've seen pop up a lot more here recently, so it's kind of cool to see that. And then we are on 28 lands, which the main ones that we are looking at are like the Deserted Temple, the E-Zone, Gaia's Cradle, Manamo, Talon Gates, and they're all in there. So congratulations with a record of 3, 2, and 2. So I just made that comment about how Rogthras was kind of the boogeyman of the format at the beginning of the year. It kind of quickly got replaced by this one. So now we are looking at the 9th place Ral Monsoon Mage, piloted by Theodore Lawson. Yeah, this is a deck that within these past 3-4 months has kind of popped up out of nowhere. It was a deck that I think was off people's radar, and then after the Invitational, like it's just going like crazy, and it's making several top cuts. I don't know if we've seen a full-on like conversion as far as like first place finish or things like that, and we probably have, just not what we've covered on the channel. But let's take a look at what this deck is trying to do. From what I can tell in the creature package, pretty standard, right? We're making a bunch of mana between the Stormkiln, Treasonous Ogre, the Electro Burgy, Runaway Steamkin, the Sticker Goblin, all the things that you're wanting in your creatures to make more mana. Now, I want to say that like it's slightly higher than what we have seen, because I feel like at times we've seen a lot of like 8 to 9 creatures, but we're on 10, and those are probably the 10 best ones that we can have for the deck, so it's still really good. But the bread and butter is the sorceries and the instances. For the most part, we are just trying to draw as many cards as we can, make as much red mana as we can, and just keep on going and just casting spells. And, we can have protection, we have counter magic, but we're just trying to see as many cards as we possibly can. They are on bonus round, which I think that's one that some pilots choose not to run at times. I know that Pigeon has talked about not running it in his list. previously, but it's still a good card within it. And then being able to use Witch's Mark there as kind of a finisher, and also gets around the One Ring because of the Wicked Rolls. It looks. Is this a new card? Storm of Memories? Maybe it's just not showing. I don't know. There's the Mind's Desire there as far as like one of the bigger cards you want to be able to hit with Ral and flip off the top, cast for free after storming off, and exiling more cards, being able to cast them, so on. So yeah, a lot of effects like that where you exile cards or draw cards or so on. Looking at our instances, uh, not seeing a Prologue to Phyresis or a Rad Storm, so they are not on the Infect version of Ral, which I think is really cool. But they do have Gut Shot and Lava Dart there is either probably a way of either killing the table or being able to kill off the Ral need be, just to be able to recast him and then get additional flips. So let's see, no Lightning Bolt, which we've seen that kind of pop up in lists to kind of have the same effect at times. But yeah, nothing too crazy there except for just Rao being a crazy fast deck. Artifacts, seems pretty good with that. Nothing, no need for like a One Ring or anything like that. So that seems fine. We're just trying to cast as many things as we possibly can. So having 0-drop artifacts is really good. Lion's Eye Diamond, obviously there for the Underworld Breach that's here in the enchantments. We are on Fish and Rhystic Study, which Rhystic, like we've seen more lists for Rao utilizing Rhystic, and I mean it's still a really good card, but we have seen lists throughout the year that are not on Rhystic Study too. So yeah, good there. Looking at the lands, I kind of feel like this is like in the middle for Rao decks, which is crazy because we have seen decks for Rao that are running like 14 lands. Yeah, there's a lot of MDFCs to kind of help support that in the list. So, I mean, that is good. But we've seen like a range between, I think, even like 13 to 17 at times. 16 seems like a really solid place. So, I mean, that's good. And like I said, that doesn't include the MDFCs like the Sink into Stupor that we see there. What else are we on? There's some source, the Shatter Skull Smashing, the Seagate Restoration. So I mean, there are the Pinnacle Monk. There are additional lands in the deck. It's just not what we would. Well, what we're seeing for this deck, it's very common, but yeah, I'll be curious to see if we see more cards like that, especially since next year we're doing like the Strict Serenade sets and things like that. It makes me wonder if maybe we see something like that in Lorwyn. I don't know. That'd be kind of cool to see. But anyway, congratulations, Theodore, on a ninth place finish with a record of 3-1-3. All right. In eighth place, we have Carl Mandel on Thrasios Timna. Again, this is kind of a deck we've seen a lot of different variations on in this year in particular. Like we've seen tree farm strategies, we've seen like more of the traditional build. I know we've seen more of like a blue farm-esque build with TNT. So let's take a look and see what we got going on here. We're on a good creature package, but as you can tell, we're not in like ridiculous creature package. So that kind of informs me we are not on the tree farm build, especially since we have the Devoted Druid and Hazels here. Utilizing that as a combo piece. Con Sphinx is very interesting. Not one we typically see in these TNT builds, but hey, I mean, it's still a good card. It's a creature, so it's hard to interact with on the stack. Everyone, like, especially if we're going in mid-range plans, everyone's drawing a bunch of cards. Having pieces to take advantage of that is still really good. So that's cool to see here. Looking at sorceries. Yeah, pretty standard. I feel like slightly low, but the one that stands out to me here is the Savine's Reclamation. And that just stands out to me because whenever I see that in a list like this, it kind of makes me think Gifts Ungiven is in this, but let's keep going. Very interactive. I like this, this package for our interaction. It looks like they're on Orim's Chant, Path to Exile, and Strict Serenade as additional pieces to either silence or remove or get rid of threats that they need to. So that's kind of cool here. Let's see. They have the offer. Are they on Snapback? Nope. I don't see a Snapback in this. So just utilizing that as another like combo piece. Or not combo piece. Sorry. As just a regular counter magic. It all seems pretty. Yeah, they're very high on their interaction. There's the gifts ungiven, so I'm assuming what they're doing, especially since they're on devoted druid lines, that's probably a pile of Savines, Hazels, um, the devoted druid, and a swift reconfiguration, being able to just like kind of ensure that you are going to hit that line, especially if you have a protected win. So that's kind of cool to see here. Artifact wise, high on the artifact count, but that's perfectly fine. Bolus's Citadel is interesting. You don't typically see that in these lists, but I mean, we aren't on Adnos or anything like that, and so being able to just see more cards off the top if you need to, that's kind of cool. We are on the One Ring there. There is the Swift reconfiguration, and again, some of the key themes that we are seeing in our enchantments: the Fish, the Ristic, and Necropones. I feel like those are cards that have defined our format at times and how things are right now. And we are on the Smothering Tide. 30 lands, I think, is really interesting. We are on a lot of lands for a list like this. Um, I think the Forbidden Orchard kind of stands out to me as something that doesn't get included a lot because giving your opponents creatures kind of feels bad sometimes. But we are on a lot of lands that do fixing, and I don't think that's a bad call. Um, we're on Spire as opposed to like a starting town or a Tarnished Citadel, which I mean seems fine, especially since we are kind of high on our artifact count. Yeah, it's still a good list. I still have high hopes at times for TNT, and so yeah, this is cool to see doing well at an event like this. So congratulations, Carl, on eighth place finish with a record of 3-1-3. In seventh place, we have Ben Nori on Kennen Bonder Prodigy. So, again, this is a deck we've seen pop up quite a bit throughout the year. So, let's take a look and see if there's anything like truly, truly different from this list compared to what we are used to seeing. I think some cards that I'm noticing right away that seem a little bit different are like the Mockingbird and the Gilded Drake. And I only say that because I don't feel like a lot of Kennen lists have been on Mockingbird, but it's still not a bad card. Um, I see my dog there in the background. So, yeah, Mockingbird, it's still a really good card. It just kind of feels bad if you flip into it. So it's really there for like more of an early game play. I feel like Gilded Drake, it's still it's a very strong card. It's very good. I just feel like that people have kind of fallen off of the Gilded Drake and tried to steal people's stuff plan. But it just really is dependent on the meta. I see the Fairy Mastermind and Endurance, so I'm assuming there's some loops with that. We have some flash enabling stuff. The Emrakul is the biggest thing that stands out to me, just because you can't really make use of it if you flip into it, or you can't make a full use out of it if you flip into it, but it is still a like 13/13 beater that you can just hit early on. So it's neat. It kind of gives you this like big flips vibe to it, but still kind of cool. It's actually really interesting if you flip into that and then you copy it with something like the Clever Impersonator, then you get the cast trigger. So that is, or the Fairy Metamorph. So that's kind of cool too. We're used to seeing the Nezahal, the Hullbreaker for Hullbreaker lines. Same thing with the Valley Flood Caller, the Consphinx, Seaborn Muse. So outside of that, most of the pretty standard package for Kennen. Same thing with the sorceries here, with the really good green tutors that you want, then like a transmute artifact to get the Basalt Monolith or any other piece artifact-wise you need. Instances. They're on Gifts Ungiven, which I don't exactly know what the gifts pile you would want for Kennen would be. So if you're familiar with it, drop it down in the comments down below. But outside of that, everything else is pretty standard for what we have seen a lot of times with Kennen. So that's cool. We have this package here still. Heavy on the artifacts, but that's to be expected in Kennen. Imposter Mech is a really, really good card, I think, right now in the format. Like, regardless. So, like, if you're able to jam an Imposter Mech, I would always do it. Yeah, it's just a solid card and really kind of helps protect the Kennen player a lot more, just because you can copy like a Bowmaster and that deals with the main threat that Kennen decks run into. Combo pieces, obviously the Basalt Monolith and the Mirage Mirror here. Looking at our enchantments, we're on some copy effects for multiple copies of Ristic Study or multiple of whatever we really want to copy someone's necropotent. So I mean that's cool, but it's not like a full copy package, and that's okay. I think that's perfectly fine. They are on the battle, and they are on 25 lands, which the ones we are used to seeing. I think the Minamo is good. The main targets for it are going to be the Cradle and the One Ring only, but I think that's good enough, making either a bunch of mana or being able to draw more cards seems fine. Treasure Vault being able to use as a combo piece technically, filtering colorless mana into it to make infinite treasures. So that's also good. Yeah, I mean, Kennen is still a very solid list and continues to be a very solid list. So congratulations, Ben, with a record of 3-0-4. All right. In sixth place, we have Elijah Daniels on another blue form list. But right away, this is a very interesting blue form list. They have the Matt Hayes tech. I feel like that's what this list is trying to do. This is one that they got together with Matt Hayes, and they're like, we're going to play this version of it because I know Matt plays a unique version of Blue Form and continues to perform very, very well with it. But that just seeing this right away, that's what I noticed. So the pieces that so far that we're looking at that stand out to me: the Flame Scroll Celebrant as an additional silence effect, Magda, which you don't see a whole lot in blue form, so I'm curious to see what that is. Delny, which is still really good, and I think lists tend to run it, especially if they're more Timna pilled. But it's one that's kind of fallen out here recently for blue form, and I think that's just because the deck's trying to go a little bit faster. But if we're going into a little bit more creature synergy stuff, Delny's still really good. Mayhem Devil was all-star at the Invitational and still pops up in blue form lists from time to time. Looking down, and this is why I said it's a Matt Hayes list. So they are on Knuckles and Stormkilling Artist. So that's kind of cool to see within this. Again, Blake and I joke a lot when we see Knuckles, we're just like Secret Commander Knuckles, and that's the win con, and that's not the win con of these lists. It's just trying to make more treasures. Same thing with the Stormkilling Artist, which can be utilized as a combo piece at times, but I think it's just there for additional value. And probably these pieces have something to do with the Magda being there in the 99, but let's keep going and see what we got going on. Same sorcery package that we've seen in our other blue form lists, minus like maybe the extra turn effect, but still really solid. It's what we want. Looking at the instances, it's high on our instant count. Don't get me wrong, but I think we've seen lists trying to push more like around 29 to 31, so it's slightly lower. But we're on all the tech that we need to be. We have the offer snapback as a ritual. Same thing with the Rain of Filth, obviously, sacrificing our lands. Very, very common package still there for interaction and whatnot. Looking at the artifacts, okay, that's the reason why the Magda's there. They are on Bolus's Citadel, so being able to just like sack 5 treasures and go get boluses and just continue flipping cards off the top, and like even if we don't have an Adnaz in hand right away, like just being able to like just keep digging as much as we can with the boluses, really cool. Again, same enchantments we're used to seeing with the blue farm. Going down to the lands, we're on 25. And I made this comment earlier in the video as far as the City of Traders. So again, this is a land that we have seen popping up, especially in these lists for blue form that are trying to go a little bit faster. So maybe this is like almost like the more Mardu-esque blue form build, because there's a lot of Mardu type synergies within this, and that's kind of cool seeing here as far as like a different variation of blue form performing so well at this event. So congratulations, Elijah, with a record of 3-0-4. All right. In fifth place, we have Paul Karabazik. I don't know. Correct me, please. On Sisay, Weatherlight Captain. So obviously, you all know me by now. I love Sisay. Let's take a look and see what we got going on here. And I think the dead giveaway is just the Planeswalker package. We are on Aminatou, Saheeli, and Nicobolas. So seeing that here informs me that we are on the Oath of Teferi enchantment. So we're doing the traditional like tutor chain type stuff. And we're used to seeing the Teferi Time Reveler. We're used to seeing the Tyvar as a pseudo haste. So we have a silence effect, pseudo haste. The Ashiok and the Teferi Who Slows the Sun are like more recent pieces, I think, in Sisei Tech, where you can utilize the other Teferi to untap things and reset lines. Ashiok just kind of as a stacks piece to kind of control the board a little bit. So, I mean, that's really kind of cool. Let's go down to our creatures. Obviously, we are trying to produce as much mana as we can in a Sisei list. So, we're probably on a full mana dork package. The Mockingbird is really interesting. You don't see that a lot in Sisei, but being able to copy someone else's commander, being able to copy the dork, and Esper Sentinel still seems really, really good. Being able to play some of our legendaries like Lavinia also seems really good. That kind of informs me like we're trying to push into like more of the mid game and slow people down. I think Lavinia is still a good card. Most people have opted to do Spider Woman kind of in that same spot. I think both are good and very flexible. But it's kind of like what I mentioned about Defense Grid earlier. You have to be really careful in your timing of when you play pieces like this. They are on Wan Shi Tong, which again, phenomenal card. So it kind of makes sense. It's an archivist that's legendary and helps with the Sisei plan. Main combo lines within this, obviously the Derevi Emil lines with things like Selvala, Fabro Elder, Bloom Tender, and Gaia's Cradle make infinite mana. They are on Deadpool and Urtai, which I'm kind of a fan of. Same thing with the Sakashima. Just it helps to really ensure that lines go smoothly, especially if you're trying to put multiple activations on the stack and you need multiple more creatures on the field for things like Gaia's Cradle. Samut, Voice of Dissent. This is a card that has come in and out of Sisei lines at times, and we would typically see this with the Jeggy builds, where it's kind of like more like Najila and Derevi and Samut being able to like have the haste enable, but you go into this infinite combat. So you don't really see it pop up too much in like the tutor chain builds, but it's still a great card because it really does enable most of your deck a lot more. Just, you have this out and then you go tutor for Selvala and you can tap it right away. So finding an additional way to just speed up the deck is really nice. Colossal Sky Turtle, again, people have been on this tech before where Sisei just doesn't do a good job at recurring things. And so being able to either remove a permanent or recur something at instant speed that's really hard to deal with seems pretty good. Looking at the sorceries, a couple of green creature tutors and demonic tutor, which those are fine. Sisei historically has played like very low on our sorceries, but those are still good. The Savine's Reclamation is very interesting. Again, it's kind of like I made that comment earlier with the TNT. When I see this piece in particular, you're probably going for something that is a Gifts Ungiven line. So let's check our instances. We are on Gifts Ungiven. So I'm assuming here that the line is the Savines along with Fabro, or not Fabro, well, yes, Fabro Elder technically, but Sahili Rai and Tyvar Jubilant Brawler and either Fabro Elder or Bloom Tender. And basically what that allows you to do is assemble Wooburg and be able to have like these hasty Fabrils. I'll just use those in particular. So that way you can actually like just go for more of your win lines right there off of a gifts pile. So that's kind of cool to see with this. Going back to the instances, it's kind of limited on our interaction, but that's what Sisei decks are kind of known for. Like they aren't super interactive with as far as instant spells cast on the stack. It looks like they're kind of utilizing the commander as more of a toolbox with some of the creatures, but they do have some spot removal with things like the Abrupt Decay and the Psych Rift. Technically, Legolas's quick reflexes and a minimal counter package to kind of keep the Sisei pilot in the game, running the silence effect. I'm actually trying out Orange Chant as well in my build of it, but I mean, to each their own, but it's still really good. So this is what we are used to kind of seeing with Sisei pilots. Looking at the artifacts, no One Ring, no chromatic. I don't think we're on chromatic if we don't have the Dahada lines. So I think that's fine, not including that. Agatha's Soul Cauldron is just like an all-star of the deck in particular. So it's cool that has just been such a powerhouse card in Sisei in general. Looking at our instances, again, they are on the Oath of Teferi. They are not on Cultists of the Absolute, and I think that kind of makes sense. Like if we aren't on Dahada, we don't go for Cultist, and that's where the typical tutor line is for like more the turbo line for Sisay. So having Cultist out and putting in Deafening Silence kind of makes sense because the deck itself is not trying to go turbo. Like you have to hit Wooburg. It's going to be difficult for Sisay to go truly turbo. So slowing everyone else down around you is good. Looking at our lands, usually Sisay sits at about 28, 29 lands anyway, so this seems correct. I think the Lush Portico is the thing that stands out to me, and then they're not on a whole lot of lands that just like truly color fix. It almost looks like they're on a full package of fetches and duels, and I mean that's fine. You could totally do that. Um, I just know for me personally, I like having access to like the starting town, the Tarnished Citadel, things like that to be able to consistently hit my colors. And then I mentioned the Derevia Mill line earlier. You could do an instant speed win with the Guy's Cradle and the Mount Doom. So that's what that stuff is there for. Just in case you aren't aware of what that does, because those are legendaries and you can tutor for them. So yeah, Tutor Chain still doing very, very well in with Sisay. So congratulations, Paul, with a record of 4-3-0. In fourth place, we have Evan Sell on Francisco Thrasios. So this is interesting. It is a deck we've seen pop up in these past couple months as like a turbo cradle deck, but it's still a really cool deck for Sultai colors. I feel like whenever people think Sultai, they think more Glarb right now, and we have seen a Tevish Thras pop up, but I think that this deck is honestly really dope. So let's kind of see what they got going on here. Now, right away in the creature package, they are not on like the Oboro Breeze Caller stuff. So you can kind of tell they aren't going into like a Turbo Cradle strategy. And I think that that's okay. You still have Thassa's Demonic Consultation Tainted Pact. You also have Walking Ballista there as a combo piece. And so typically what this deck is going to be trying to do, utilizing Francisco as a combo piece in the command zone with the Walking Ballista Agatha Soul Cauldron and being able to shoot the table that way through the Francisco ability. So that, I mean, that's really all you need for this. And then Thrasios is there, just accrue more value. But what else do we have going on here? They are on the Wan Shi Tong and the Cabbage Merchant. Yep, Cabbage Merchant. As again, new cards. If you have a bunch of mana, being able to dump it into Wan Shi Tong, draw a bunch of cards in someone's instep, and then go into your turn and probably present a win. So that's kind of cool to see here. They are on Kinnan, which makes me think that they're on Basalt Monolith. So we will double check that in a second. It just makes sense with Thrasios in the command zone anyway. So that's good. Looking at our sorceries, all the good tutors that we would need, they are on a will effect, which is unique, something that we're not really used to seeing. But I guess that if we need to get our graveyard back somehow, that's a way of doing that. And also just seeing more cards in general. They aren't transmute artifacts. So when I see this, I'm going to go back to that Kinnan comment. I think they're on Basalt, or they're just trying to get Walking Ballista or Agatha Soul Cauldron. So they can utilize that as like, they can literally go get transmute, go get the Walking Ballista. It will die anyway because it'll be 0. And then if they have Agatha's out, they just kind of win from there. Looking at our instances, good interaction here, I feel like, as far as like very, very good like tutors that we're on and what we're used to seeing. They're on Adnaz, they're on the Dramatic Reversal. They're not really high on creatures to make use of that, so we'll see what's going on with that in a second. They're on Banishing Knack too, so the Flood Color Banishing Knack stuff still pops up from time to time. I didn't see a Retraction Helix, so it might be that they are only on that. Let's see. A little bit of protection with like the Veil of Summer. I mentioned the Adnaz on already. Let's look at the artifacts. Okay. So I think this is where it gets really unique. They are on the Basalt Monolith for the Kinnan. They are on Agatha's Soul Cauldron. They are on Isochron Scepter. So they are on the Isorave plan where they could just untap every like non-land permanent, generate a bunch of mana that way. They have Sensei's Top, so I'm assuming they could just like draw a bunch of cards as well somehow, or maybe they're just utilizing that as more of a value piece. I don't know. That's kind of unique in that way. Um, I think we should call a talisman and ISO rev is interesting because you could just tutor for three things as you're making mana. So that's kind of cool. Enchantment wise, again, similar pieces to what we have been seeing with the fish, the study, and the necropotence, and they're also necrodominance. So I don't know. This is interesting. Like the artifact package just kind of throws me off just a little bit, but I mean, hey, it clearly did well. It placed in top four, so that's cool. Looking at the lands, really high on the land count, but we're seeing things to go a little bit faster too. Like we're on the City of Traders, we're on that peat bog. It'd be cool to see if they were to include like the Phyrexian Tower as well, if they're trying to go like super, super fast. We have good mana fixing. We are on Cradle and Talon Gates. Yeah, that just kind of surprises me when we have those pieces included here anyway. Like, why are we not on the Boral Breeze Collar? But to each their own. Like, again, this is not like a super heavy like Turbo Cradle strategy anyway, so it makes sense to not be on that piece. But regardless, I think this Sultai pile is really, really cool. And clearly there's a lot you could do with it because they had different things going on with it. So congratulations, Evan, with a fourth place finish with a record of 3-1-3. All right. In third place, we have Rajix on Dogthras. So this is a list we've been seeing pop up quite a bit here recently. Like Ian just took down Beg ZD2 with Dogthras, and this is one we've seen kind of pop up throughout the year with different strategies. But let's take a look and see what this one is trying to do. So right away, yeah, I mean, it kind of tells me we're on like a turbo cradle strategy with things like the Cloud of Fairies and the Boro and Springheart and Antuco. They're on Derevi and Emil. Yeah, definitely with like Peregrine Drake, Felidar Guardian, so on. Yeah, we're full sending a turbo cradle strategy. And it looks like taking use of like some either tap untap things with the Deceiver, flickering things with the Felidar Guardian, being able to flicker the Peregrine Drake as part of that meal line too. Like that's cool. That's kind of cool to see here. Obviously we can utilize Fairy Mastermind as a win. Like we've been talking about, you can just draw out the table that way, but I'm not seeing anything just yet, like endurance or anything to kind of protect ourselves a little bit more with it. So they are on Green Sun, so they can utilize that as a piece with the Fairy Mastermind, especially if they have something that has flash or they can play things at instant speed. I'm not even seeing a Valley Flick Collar though, or a High Fate Trickster. Okay, maybe they're on Emergent Zone in order to ensure that and Born Upon the Wind. Looking at the sorceries, we're on all the green creature tutors that we really want, with the exception of maybe the Eldritch, but we're not really trying to sacrifice pieces, I feel like. We are on hidden strings to be able to like tap or untap things and make more mana that way. Wargate, Ecological Appreciation. Let's see what we got instances wise. It's a little bit interactive, but not super interactive. This almost reminds me of like how Rogthrash used to be built, where it's like super limited on interaction and it's just trying to put creatures out and jam and make a bunch of mana. That's what I feel like this deck is also trying to do. So that's fine. Apparently it's doing really well. We are on Machine God's Effigy. No Candelabra, but we are on Machine God's Effigy. So that's interesting. No Candelabra when we have Turbo Cradle pieces. The Machine Gods, though, if we look back up here, we were not on a Devoted Druid. But what you can do is combo it off with the Felidar Guardian, where you can actually have the Machine Gods enter as a copy of Felidar Guardian, flickering the original Felidar Guardian. That one ETBs, you target the Machine Gods, it's a copy of Felidar Guardian, but you tap it down for a blue. So you can actually generate infinite blue mana that way, and then be able to like reset an ETB and kind of go off from there with Thrasios and just draw out your deck. So that's neat. Looking at the enchantments, yeah, what we are used to seeing, right, in these colors, as far as things to draw cards, make more mana, reduce effects, and so on. Looking at the lands, and I get, again, this is kind of where I think it's interesting that there's no candelabra, but maybe I don't know if this was a proxy friendly event or not, but regardless, they are on the Gaia's Cradle, the Manamo, the Talon Gates. Obviously, we had the Boral Breeze color up at the top, so it just makes sense um, to have the lines. We're on the E zone as our thing to do the flash enabling stuff. Yeah, I mean it is kind of a turbo cradle strategy. I mean, okay, is a turbo cradle strategy and maybe just opting more of being able to manipulate things through creature combos as opposed with the artifacts. But yeah, solid list and still performs very, very well. So congratulations on third place finish with a 3-0-4 record. In second place, we have Roel Pomper. Roll Pomper. Yeah, sorry. Forgive me. It is what it is at this point. Um, on Thrasios Vile Smasher. So we have another Sans white list popping up. That's cool. Okay, let's see what we got going on here. It looks very similar to the list that we saw earlier. Um, Pretty much trying to be low to the ground, having some dorks, but some good value pieces like the Seaboard Muse and Valley Flood Caller. Obviously, Thassa's as a win con. Bergie there to make additional mana. Yeah, like pretty similar to what we were seeing. Looking at the sorceries now, a little bit higher on our will count, but for the most part, kind of the same. They are on our reanimate. When I see the reanimate, that almost makes me think that we are on a very like similar list to. Sorry, we are on the gifts because you can utilize that as a combo piece. But let's kind of keep going. Looking at our instances, we are on Retraction Helix, so we are on a Valley Flood Color loop there. We see a Gifts Ungiven. Yep, there's a Gifts Ungiven with the Adnons and so on. So, I mean, pretty standard interaction package within this, a little bit of protection, a little bit of recursion. I'm assuming, like, whenever we think of Dimir piles that are utilizing the Gifts Ungiven, it's probably like Thassa's and Snapcaster with like Tainted Pact or Demonic Consultation and Reanimate, things like that. There is no Snapcaster. So I'm kind of assuming that the line here is more of um, probably the Thassa's, the Reanimate, the either the Demonic Consultation or the Tainted Pact, and maybe the Noxious Revival. Uh, Getting those four cards and being able to assemble them in a way where you can just Thassa's out. Um, maybe some potential to be doing that somehow even with the Underworld Breach lines, but that's what just kind of stands out to me for that. Um, on artifacts, really high on our artifact count. We're on Basalt Monolith, so the Kennen was up there at the top, so that combo makes sense. They're on the One Ring, it makes sense if we're on Seaboard News, just being able to tap every player's turn and draw more cards. Um, Seems good. Enchantments, again, similar package to what we have been seeing for the most part. In our lands, let's see, is there anything different in our lands? Nope, nothing too notable that like truly stands out on this either. So, yeah, again, I think that the Sands White Pile is a really unique list, so it's kind of cool to see that it is performing well and actually took up 2 spots in this top 16. So, congratulations on a second place finish with a record of 4, 1, and 2. And finally, our first place winner of the Road to Munich event, we have Guilherme Guedes. I think that's how we pronounce your name. Again, you all correct me, let me know. But they are on Teferi Temporal Archmage. So they are on a mono blue artifact deck. And one of like the OG commanders of EDH. That's cool. We've actually seen this commander pop up like I think once maybe within the past couple weeks, and I think it came in 16th place for that event. Now we have OG Teferi coming in, and or not necessarily OG Teferi, but OG Planeswalker Teferi that could be utilized as a commander coming in at first place of this massive event. So let's take a look and see what all we have going on here. Like I said, this is going to be a mostly artifact based deck. So we're on the both Tezzerets that we need and Karn, which is cool. We have Walking Ballista here, so I'm assuming that is like our main outlet, in addition to like maybe a Fairy Mastermind if we have a way of putting things back into our library and continuing that loop. Hullbreaker Horror as a way of just bouncing our rocks, generating infinite mana, and I'm assuming that with the Teferi out, you can actually start kind of excuse me, kind of start bouncing the Teferi as a way of recasting it and continuing Planeswalker activations to draw out our deck that way, which is really neat. Some creature tutors like the Trinket Mage to go and get specific artifacts. Wan Shi Tong again popping up, and I think that this is just a mono blue staple, or just a blue staple in general at this point. It's really really good in whatever deck it can be played in. And they're on Urza on the 99, so that's also kind of neat to see that here too. Probably to highlight the Phyrexian Metamorph, I'm assuming that they're probably trying to go and copy the Hullbreaker, so that way they can start bouncing everyone else's stuff too, and that's perfectly fine. Looking at our sorceries, again, a lot of artifact tutors, some card draw, so on, things that we're used to seeing in blue. Looking at our instances, I mean, as interactive as we can be. Honestly, I think it's a little bit lighter on our counter package than what we would typically expect out of a mono blue deck, but I think that's perfectly fine. Like, we're going for counters, we're trying to reset ourselves with the dramatic reversal, being able to go and get specific artifacts through the Whir of Invention and Scour for Scrap. Yeah, it just seems solid in our interaction there. And like I said, this is a mono blue artifact deck, so we are heavy on our artifacts. It looks like we do have like a stacks piece with the Grafdigger's Cage. Let's see if there's anything else. No, not really seeing any other stacksy pieces. We're on Imposter Mech, which is great. Purposing Bay, being able to get more artifacts. Unwinding Clock is like this pseudo Seaborn Muse effect, which is really cool. One of the more important artifacts in the actual deck is the Chain Veil. And so basically, this is what is going to allow us to get multiple Planeswalker activations throughout the turn. And really what it seems like you're trying to do with that, and obviously generating infinite colorless mana with like Rings of Brightheart, Assault Monolith, but it seems what you're trying to do is you get multiple activations of Teferi, and you can +1 to draw cards, and then you can minus to untap the Chain Veil and whatever else you need to continue with activations. And so you can kind of present this loop where you are untapping your artifacts through the minus ability and drawing a card as well. And when you do that, you just basically draw out your deck, and you have essentially infinite mana at that point. So then you can actually utilize the Walking Ballista. So again, that's kind of neat. Assuming the Chromatic Orrery is another way of like just producing infinite mana. Looking at our enchantments, again, Fish, Rhystic, Copy effects. That's what we expect to see out of a deck like this. And then in our land package, again, we are an artifact deck, so being able to make use of things like the Mishra's Workshop and the Inventor's Fair, City of Traders, and Ancient Tomb just go hard in a deck like this, because you all saw the count for the artifacts. It's very high, so having colorless mana is still really relevant, important. The Sanctum of Eternity is interesting, but I think that kind of feels like it's just a way of being able to like reset lines potentially by bouncing the commander back to hand and then recasting it and being able to do more stuff, or just has a way of protecting your Teferi by bouncing him when you need to on your turn. So that's neat. Talon Gates just as a piece to remove like any kind of threat that you need to be able to go off like an OBM or so on. Yeah, this is cool. I think that this is just a cool list, and I'm sure that I'm missing some pieces. So again, you all that might be more familiar with a deck like this, like drop it down in the comments below and let me know what they are trying to do exactly. But I think I hit the main points with it. And other than that, congratulations on a first place finish with a record of 2-1-4. But on EDH Top 16, they actually finished with a record of 5-1-4. So it seems like they made second day and then won out all of their games, and that's just fucking awesome. So yeah, here we are. Like, this was a really cool top 16 to be able to cover. Like, yeah, it had some turbo strategies in this with like the Rogsai and the Ral in it, but outside of that, this is like a very mid-ranged event, is what it seems, and a lot of really unique decks that are popping up between. We saw a couple of Sans White with the Vile Thras. We saw the Sultai Francisco Thrasios. I actually like Thrasios very, very prominent in this event, but again, I have a very weird opinion on Thrasios. I think it is like one of the most solid commanders in the format. Actually, I think people would agree with that. I think it's the best partner, but that's just me. I have a weird take on that, and I know that, and I'll own up to it. But again, we see a ton of Thrasios in this top 16. We saw three different blue forms still. Like that deck is still very strong, very prominent. And we saw like slightly different variations, especially the one that finished with like the Matt Hayes style deck. So that's cool to see in here. We see two decks that are artifact based between the Oswald and that Teferi there at the end. Like there's something to be said about that. We've seen quite a few artifact strategies that are popping up. Those two in particular, like we've seen over the past couple of weeks, we've seen Arkham Dagsson continue to pop up and perform well. So I think that just kind of goes to show that we are in a really good place in the meta right now, as far as we can have turbo. There are some stacksy stuff. Like I think one of the lists that I covered actually ran it was the Oswald list that ran a bunch of stacks pieces. So I mean, we are starting to see a slight resurgence in. We have turbo, we have artifact strategies, we have land-based strategies, we have blue form, we have the Kennons and the Sisei still popping up, and so it's a very diverse format and diverse meta at the moment. It's just really cool to be present in this space while all this stuff is going on. So yeah, that's really all that I have for today. So I hope you all enjoyed this. And again, this is probably going to be coming out a little bit later than it normally would today because I'm re-recording the day of. And so I hope that this right here doesn't fuck up. I tried to really take on y'all's advice. Just eat the shit. So that's what we are doing today, and we are redoing this, and I hope it turns out better for you guys because we do put a lot of time and effort, and we've had a lot of issues these past couple of weeks. We are very aware of that, and we are going to continue to be very transparent about that. So if you all have any suggestions on how to help us with that, drop it down in the comments down below too, because that is greatly appreciated. Aside from that, I hope you enjoyed this top 16 breakdown. Join our Discord, join our Patreon. If you're in Kentucky, join the Kentucky cEDH Discord as well. So that way you can get connected with players and stores and so on that we are trying to push in our own state. If you like what we are doing, like, subscribe, comment, and as always, go play some cEDH.